Oh, I have some new information on a story we've been following very closely here on Happening Now. A judge orders Brendan Dassey, whose case was part of the Netflix series Making a Murder, well, he's released from prison. Dassey was accused of being involved in the rape and murder of Teresa Halbach, along with his uncle Stephen Avery, the subject of that series. On October 31st, 2005, Teresa Halbach, a freelance photographer from Wisconsin, had an appointment to visit the Avery Auto Salvage Yard to take pictures of some vehicles there, and then she was never seen again. Then on November 10th, the county sheriff announced that Halbach had been murdered at the salvage yard. They say they found bone fragments, a camera, and a cell phone in a burn pit near Avery's trailer. Avery was charged with the crime. The following year, in 2006, his nephew, Brendan Dassey, arrested. He was a teenager as a co-conspirator to the assault and murder of Halbach. And on April 26, 2007, Dassey, who was 17 at the time, was found guilty of all the charges against him and sentenced to life in prison. In 2013, his appeal and request for a new trial were denied. But on August 12th of this year, a judge did grant a petition to overturn his convictions, and just yesterday, a U.S. district judge ordered that Dassey be released from prison under supervision while he awaits an appeal by prosecutors. Joining us now, Fox News legal analyst Lee Sweel and Bob Bianchi, a criminal defense attorney, former head county prosecutor in New Jersey. Lisa and Bob, welcome. I mean, if you saw that police interrogation, you saw Brendan. I mean, that young man seemed challenged. He did not know. Your heart really went out to him.
Right, it did. And also, he did not have an adult, which under the law, you're supposed to, as a minor, at least be able to call an adult, have an adult there with you.
Any adult, not just a lawyer?
Well, no, like a parent,
Wow.
somebody with you there. And he didn't have that. And so what the judge ruled is because of the mental issue, because he didn't have an adult, and that because he was really coerced, that the confession, even though the confession, this is kind of strange, even though the confession may be a true confession, that it was, because it was coerced, it had to be thrown out, and therefore the conviction had to be thrown out. So now the question is, what happens to that conviction against Avery?
But yeah, what about Avery? Because Avery's case is now, his lawyer is trying to get him sprung from jail. He's got life in prison.
Yeah, Avery has gone through all the state appeals, and he's gone through a considerable amount of the habeas corpus in federal court. It's usually very hard at that stage to get it overturned unless you find newly discovered evidence or there's a showing of ineffective assistance of counsel, much of which has already been resolved in this case. So the real issue does become, as Lisa indicates, when the defense attorneys are going to sit there and say the confession that the co-defendant that's now been thrown out was such a substantial part of the conviction in the Avery case that an unfair result had occurred and that it should not be able to be used in the Avery case. I would argue, as prosecutors, we were talking about this off scene, that the Fifth Amendment protects that confession from being used against the person who it was taken from, but not necessarily against another person. Because as a prosecutor, one thing is clear: the circumstantial evidence in this case is very strong, and the fact that his constitutional rights were violated, the young man, doesn't mean that what he said wasn't truthful.
But at least, what did they go to the jury? How do they find out whether it had a really impact on Avery's case?
The two prongs of that. So first of all, how you get it back in front of the jury, because what could happen is the prosecution, the defense would say, and I'm not a defense lawyer, I'm a prosecutor, but I will wear the defense hat for this. I'll take it for the team here. The defense could say, no, that confession is now a bad confession, even against Avery, because it's what's called fruit of the poisonous tree. Once that confession has come out and it's deemed to have been a bad confession because of the way it was taken, it's fruit of the poisonous tree. You can't take it. You can't take anything from that.
And quickly,
so you can't even bring it in front of the jury again. It's out.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I like Bob's argument. I'm going to go with Bob's argument that the Fifth Amendment goes against Dassey. It can't be used against him, the confession, but it still should be used against Avery.
And I'll add one other thing. Those courts are going to look, all appellate courts, it's not like a do-over. They're going to say that there was so much other evidence that the jury could have convicted Avery of that issue with the confession is not relevant.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, Dassey is out and pending this appeal, so we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Got it.
Jenna?